Welcome back, my friends. I am here with an absolutely delightful guest. Let me tell you about Jason Hewlett. He is a Hall of Fame speaker, an entertainer, and the president of CardioMiracle. We're going to get into all of those things and talk about his journey. Jason, thank you so much for joining me today.
Mindie, thanks for having me. You even said my last name right. What a deal. We've all been through the last name challenge, right?
We were talking quite a bit about that before we started the show.
Not everybody
Well,
knows how tough that is to live with, right?
it's
But
really
it's okay.
challenging. It really, really is. Because then you never know, like, should I correct them? Like, you don't want to be rude to the person who's introducing you. But anyway,
It's happened and it's okay. It's no, you did perfect. So thank you for having me. What an honor to be a part of this podcast. You've had some incredible guests. I was just checking out. Wow.
we have had some amazing guests, and you are right in the mix of that because here's where I want to begin.
Yeah.
So, you and I met at an event called CHS, Consumer Health Summit. And for the first day or so, the founder of that, Michael Fishman, who also has been on this show, was hinting, teasing, just, saying, oh, we're going to have this concert. And everybody's kind of like, okay. Oh, and this concert is with someone in this room. We're like, all right, whatever. I have to tell you, I've seen a lot of entertaining stuff in my life. I have seen a lot of funny people in my life. I would put you in the top two of those. My husband, Sean being one.
Whoa. Yeah,
And
Sean. Well, that's crazy.
here's my first question for you. It's totally random, but I'm really curious about it. There was a time that I was watching Sean on stage. He was with Tim Gard. I don't know if you know Tim
Oh, I
from.
love Tim. Tim's going to
Okay,
be
he's
in
awesome.
my city tomorrow, speaking to our NSA chapter. There you go. What a
Amazing.
world.
I love that synchronicity. So we had Tim at our 10K speeches event. Tim
Mm.
is on stage. Sean gets on stage with him, and the two, of course, are being hilarious together. But then Sean like took it to a level that I couldn't have even imagined. Tim had, so you know him. He does a lot of props and funny things. He has this stuff called pond scum, which like you put it in water and it like is disgusting and makes pond scum. Well, Sean puts it in his mouth, like the whole packet in his
Oh
mouth.
no.
He's still on stage talking to Tim. Now, this stuff is erupting out of his mouth, falling onto the stage. And I'm looking around like I myself am dying of laughter, as is everybody else. The same thing happened when we were watching you on stage. So here's what I want to ask you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Pond scum level.
Truly pond scum level. I remember thinking when I was watching Sean, I'm like, dear God, I am married to a lunatic. And I'm curious if your wife ever has the same reaction because it must take a next level of literally just leaving it all on the stage and not caring what anybody thinks about the craziness that you guys can bring forth. Can you talk to me about that? Because that's not how I present on stage.
I'm sure your audience is like, well, I guess we need to see this guy now, right? That's a
Yes,
very
that's my
kind,
intention. Everybody.
yeah, that's a very kind introduction. I'll tell you, to be compared to Sean in any level is an honor of my life for sure. He's one of the greats of all time. And yes, and even Tim Gard and these others. I think I have a superpower of not worrying at all what the audience thinks. And that has given me so much permission to go to places that people are like, why would you even share that? And it's not because I'm saying anything offensive or wild. I'm doing things with my face, my voice, my body that people have never really seen anybody do other than like in a make believe scenario. And that's what's been fun about it. And yeah, my wife, married to a lunatic, she totally, I don't know how she embraced that so quickly, but I'll tell you, I think that was part of the beauty of us coming together was that she saw in me, while she had other options, obviously, plenty of them, she saw in me that I'm a no holds barred guy, that I was just going to go for it regardless of what anyone thought. And I appreciate that she saw that in me because there are plenty of women that, I'd go on a date with, and they were like, "You're too much. It's too weird. I don't get this. This is crazy." Whereas my wife was like, "That's bizarre and charming, and I think it's cute." So
But it's so far beyond that. Like
yeah,
you guys truly have this magical ability. And I want to dig into this. Like, was that way, like what you just said of not caring what the audience thinks, was that how you always were, or was that cultivated over time? Because I think that a lot of people could use a lot more of that.
oh yeah, well yeah, and Sean had the ultimate confidence in that sense, but then obviously there was this underlying like, where am I at, kind of questioning kind of thing that people would see in us, right? And so for me as a kid, I remember thinking, oh, I have to be. I really cared about what other people thought. But then when I got on stage, it was almost like a costume for Halloween,
Hmm.
right? Like it was another character. And it was almost like, yeah, the spotlight's shining on me, but I can do the things that most people would only do in the dark, with their face. And so that became a really a superpower for me to say, yeah, I'm just going to go for it. And yeah, I've done that ever since I was little. I do think, though, that I have an extreme sensitivity. And so when I have come off stage, I have to remember that that's like a character rather than people saying, oh, that's so ugly and you're ugly. And then I'm like, oh, I want to crawl into a hole. And so I've had to work through that myself for many years from being a kid to a teenager to a man. And now I just wear it like it's a badge of honor.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit, maybe? Because I'm thinking there are tons of speakers in our audience, because a lot of folks followed Sean and we're always, looking at what he was doing to try to learn how they could do that. How did you develop some of that like superpower ability?
I'd say a majority of it came from the response that people gave me anyway. So because they laughed, it was okay to lean into the ugly, right?
Okay.
And where people would be like, "Oh, that's an ugly thing." And I would say, "Yeah, but it made you laugh." So then that's what matters the most. And I think that a lot of people, when they have a creation, especially an entrepreneur, a speaker, a performer, if they put something out in the world and somebody says, "Oh, that's ugly," well, then, yeah, you might hide it and never share it again. But there is somebody who's going to love it and want it and share it and just be all about that. And that's where I think for me that came through with, okay, yeah, it's okay that people think that it's weird, and I think that it's awesome, so I'm going to go for it. And that gives a lot of people courage, actually. I'm like a permission granter by sharing the weird stuff I share, and it gives people the ability to say, okay, what am I going to share with my audience? Because if that guy's not afraid, then I shouldn't be either. And I've heard people like Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, Will Ferrell, others saying like, it's just my ability to look stupid and be fearless that
Mm.
gives the audience permission to laugh and love me even more.
I'm telling you, I mean, like I said, I've seen a lot of entertainers. I've even gone to a lot of comedy shows and watched comedians, and I don't think I've ever laughed that hard. I mean, everybody, even next to me, we were all crying. Like watching
Really?
someone next to me wipe their eyes. We're just dying of laughter, and it was so awesome. There's, that quote about people won't necessarily remember what you say to them, but they'll remember how you make them feel. That to me is like you at that event, because there were a lot of great speakers and we learned a lot of stuff. But oh my gosh, do I remember yours most vividly, because we were feeling amazing. So let me ask you this. How would you actually describe what it is you do? Because you're not a normal speaker on stage. So what, like if someone said, "Oh, I've never seen Jason on stage," like what is it? How do you define that? Because I don't
Yeah,
know how to define that.
yeah, that is confusing, right? I mean, I started my career as an entertainer, and so that's kind of where we lean into first. I teach through entertaining people. And I found out as a young kid that I had a knack for impressions and mostly musical comedy impressions. So I can sing and sound like the voice of a lot of different artists. And so in reality, I do a lot of things with my face, a lot of things with my voice and my body. And I am very musical. And so I would say to people, look, it's as if you had Jim Carrey and Weird Al and Billy Joel in the same performance, and they're like,
Totally.
what does that mean?
And like I can't, that doesn't even make any sense except that I have seen you do it.
Right. Yeah. So they're just like, well, that's very compelling, right? And so then, I mean, really, I'm teaching a message called the promise. And I like to say that, we all have promises that we can make or break or keep if we want. It just depends on where we're at. But I share this message through entertaining people in a style that's just so unique. And I'm just taking a song like Guns N' Roses meets Marge Simpson, and I say, all of us have a signature move. What's the thing that makes you unique? And everybody's sitting there thinking to themselves, I don't know. And then I say, well, what's Axl Rose's signature move? He does this thing with his body where he sways back and forth, but the voice is kind of hard. So how do you figure that out? And then I would say, this is Axl Rose and Marge Simpson in the same song. And then she got a smile when it seemed to me, remind me of childhood memory. And it sounds so much like, now and then when I see her face, she takes me away to that special place. And so it's like I'm teaching through ridiculousness, a power of association to say to yourself, okay, how can I identify, clarify, magnify my signature moves that make me unique? And how am I willing to promise to share that with the world? And that's really what the show is. It's a speech on leadership, on courage, and on figuring out really what you're about and how you can share it with the world, and that you need to. Because if you don't, you're breaking a promise to the world to share that which only you've got.
Exactly. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, from my impression, from what you said on stage at that event, you were working in Vegas and had a lot of seemingly amazing things kind of lined up for you, and like your career is just exploding, and that's awesome. And I think what might be a very tough decision, you made a very tough decision to say goodbye to that. And I'd love for you to share like what happened, why you made that decision, and more importantly, how, because a lot of people listening are at that stage. They need to make the choice for like who they are, what they're going to stand for. And I think you can illustrate that so beautifully.
That's very kind of you to ask. I had two real major moments in my early 20s in Vegas. The first was I had been with Legends in Concert, which was a show at the Imperial Palace. I was a Ricky Martin impersonator and Elton John in the same show. So I could pull off both characters. Everyone thought I was, I was those
guys. You guys are totally different.
They're totally, yeah. So I can really be a chameleon and morph, right? I did that gig for about a year. And then I put together a one-man show of music, comedy impressions that were like 100 of them in one show. So first of all, leaving that show was a real big jump for me. That would be like any entrepreneur that's got a really nice job that they're like, this is kind of a dream job, but I still want to go take that risk and go create that thing that really energizes me. So I left a dream job with Legends in Concert to say goodbye to that and create something new of a one-man impression show that also integrated motivation and stuff. Like nobody had really created anything like this. So I left that job. That was huge. And I was 23 when I left that.
Oh, that was so young.
Yeah. And by the time I was about 25, 26, the one-man show that I had created, just like any entrepreneur that's watching or listening, the one-man show I created became its own monster in the sense that corporations were hiring me. I was getting every opportunity. I was doing 200 dates a year. I was going everywhere around the world. And I was young and I was on fire and I was killing it. And I remember they brought me into a casino where I had really idolized the guy that was there already. He was a headliner. He had made hundreds of millions. And they were like, hey, you're next. You're the next in line to be the next guy in Vegas.
Wow.
And so I was just so excited that this was my chance. This is what I'd been working and creating. My wife and I were on our way to this massive success. But what happened at the very same moment was that they needed me to make some shifts in my act that would take me in a direction that I didn't want to go. And what that means is they needed it to be more of an adult style show than the version of family friendly I had created and I'd promised myself it would always be. They need it to be R-rated rather than more like PG or G. Really, I'm a G-rated performer, which most people can't say they are, but I can do
Right.
the same show I do in a Las Vegas casino as I do at a church chapel. Like it's kind of a wild thing. So, but that's become my signature and hallmark. And so they needed to manage my career. They didn't want any of my funny faces or stories about people that had influenced me. They didn't want a lot of the family pieces. They just wanted it to be hard hitting, funny, adult. And the theme in Vegas in 2004 had just become what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And so they really needed me to just become that. And for me personally, that's totally fine for anybody else to do. And everybody else was telling me, you've got to do it. All my headliner buddies were like, dude, this is your moment. And my wife and I were like, this is not what we signed up for. And this is not going to be the legacy we're going to create for our family that someday. I have a picture behind me there. I have 4 kids with this beautiful wife of mine. We didn't want to create that as our legacy. It's to just do any kind of show, any styling that only adults can come to. And so we walked away from the dream gig of having name and lights, be a household name potentially, and decided to just go back to our hometown where we lived in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I became kind of more of like a corporate entertainer and speaker. And that was the path that I was supposed to be on. I think about your listeners, the opportunities that are going to come along when you create something that's so awesome that the world loves and wants. When you get to that place, you're going to have every opportunity to, whether you call it sell out or to give in or to spend all your time working instead of with family. There's all sorts of options. And the question isn't, can you make that choice in the moment? The question is rather, can you make it now for when it happens?
Mm,
And that
that's
became
great.
the promise.
Yeah, I just think that's such a powerful example because you didn't just say that, you did it. And those are two very big things because people can talk, oh, these are my values and this is what I believe in. But when it comes down to it, are they going to stick to that? And you did. So I just have so much respect for that and want to showcase that as an example of like, it can be done and it's great when you do it because you maintain that integrity, you maintain that authenticity of everything that you wanted to create.
And well, that's nice of you, Mindy. And the fact is that it's not like that was easy. You
It's
know,
not easy.
we were struggling just to make a living after I left Legends in Concert and created this thing, and then it became successful. But it would have been way more financially successful had I just done what was offered. And I have had doubts where I'm like, maybe I made a bad choice when we struggle financially, or we've had recessions and things where I probably would have been fine financially in that other scenario. In fact, even when America's Got Talent, a buddy of mine won it right at the beginning of America's Got Talent, and they started calling me and saying, "We need you on this show to keep,
Mm.
you know, we need somebody that's like undiscovered but proven already," kind of a deal. And the more I leaned into maybe I should go on that show, as I went through some of the processes, I found that they were looking just to have you create a story of sympathy and struggle. And they were like, hey, why don't you say it like this in your interview? And I was just like, I'm out of here. You guys are crazy. And it was like, no, but if you just say it like this, we'll put you through. And I was like, dude, what are we doing? I'm out of here. And so this happens a lot, I think, when people cross the threshold of success. And it is a hero's journey. And there are times when you actually go through that threshold and you're like, oh, I can't go back. I've gone too far. But there is a time where you have to say to yourself, this is where it stops, and I'm going to create something new from this opportunity that I've just turned away, and something greater will come from it.
That kind of leads me into a question that I ask all of my guests. And I'm very curious what you're going to say because, like, let me give you a hint of background. The whole reason that I started this particular journey is because of my personal financial struggles as I was becoming an entrepreneur and, like, just not understanding sales and marketing and having to figure that out and the whole thing. How do you define wealth?
Uh,
Because you walked away from a version of it. But I'm guessing you have found potentially much more of it. So what is it? How do you define wealth?
That's a cool question. I mean, I haven't thought about it in the sense of trying to define it into some sentence or two, but I can tell you to have integrity with family, to have all the time possible in the world that you want to do what you want with the world and with your money, that to me is the ultimate wealth.
Yeah, I love that. Freedom.
Freedom. Yeah.
Just whatever you want, whenever you want, with whomever you want, wherever you want. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm
Yeah.
all for that. Um, you are a Hall of Fame speaker, and that is no small feat. Sean would have loved to become that. He was not, but that was
Oh,
like
Sean was absolutely in the iconic Speakers Hall of Fame.
well, he never, officially got that.
Right.
But it was always on his vision board. Like he definitely wanted that. How does one become a Hall of Fame speaker?
I mean,
Because there's a lot of great speakers out there.
there's
But like
so many.
clearly you have taken through your choices, through your decisions, you have chosen a particular path that might have led you at least toward that destination.
Yeah, that's a great question too. I mean, I started as the entertainer. I eventually started integrating motivation, leadership skills, and other trainings throughout this because I became more of a coach, mentor to a lot of companies and people and speakers and entrepreneurs too, which has been awesome. But I would say that one becomes a Hall of Fame speaker just by getting in the reps, by never giving up on coaching and making sure you have the coaches that lead you to becoming great. In fact, I don't remember a time where I didn't have multiple speaker coaches, writing coaches, mental coaches, health coaches. I mean, I know you're a coach, so you like what I'm saying, but I'm just telling you, like, for
It's
me
true.
personally, I've always been about this speech or this show is awesome. How can I continue to improve upon what's already considered by somebody their Everest? To me is like, this is the starting point still. How can I continue to always improve, break it down, fix it, make it better? And not to a point of frustration, but rather just exploration continually. And I mean, I was putting in the reps, and I would say that every gig that I got paid, I would always do a free one on the other side of it.
Oh, I like that.
Because in my opinion, and a lot of people say, don't speak for free. And I say, well, that's a tragedy because I started out speaking for free and that's what led to the fee. And so now whenever I get a fee, I say that my gift back to God or the universe, whatever you call it, my gift back to the world is to say, I'm going to speak for free for a group that could never afford it. And that to me gives me reps, it gives me opportunity, and it makes me that much better. And so I would say those are some of the ways that you become a Hall of Fame speaker.
Consistency, baby.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I like that so much because as you're talking, I'm just thinking about all the people that I've met through our speaker training events and through courses and different things. And I don't know, I can't even think of really any speaker that just started out as a high paid speaker. Like
No.
most people, if not 100% of people, go through the free rep after rep after rep. And you totally spoke to that point just and, affirmed that. So thank you.
Yeah. And I hope that anybody that's listening or watching or are thinking to themselves, I want to be a Hall of Fame speaker or I want to be successful at that. You just have to do a lot of it and create your own opportunity. I'm so frustrated by even earlier today, I was on the phone with another person that was saying, I want to be a speaker and I'm going to just pitch to these huge events. And I said, whoa, slow down. How many have you done? And they were like, I just want to be on the 4,000 to 5,000 person stage kind of thing. And I said, the only way you're going to get that gig is if you're good enough in their eyes through your video, through what they see that you're good at. You have to create the opportunity to get the opportunity. And he was like, oh, I thought I could just pitch it. And I said, you'll pitch forever into the dark.
Yeah.
Go create something and show them on a video reel that you're awesome. And he was like, I don't even know where to get the opportunities. And I said, okay, what associations do you belong to? What universities are in your area? What schools and what scouts and beauty pageants? And he was just like, I never thought of it this way. And I said, essentially, you are a street act on the corner performing until you get to Vegas headlining stages. That's where, in my opinion, anybody can start. You start somewhere, you give it away, you do it for anybody that wants to watch you, wants to pay eventually, and then you'll get the opportunity. But create it yourself.
I love that. So being a speaker can be a very busy and potentially full-time job, but you also have this other thing, this other, little amazing huge thing called CardioMiracle that you work on with your dad, which I think is so awesome. One, can you tell our audience what that is so they're aware? And two, how do you balance your work as a entertainer and that work as the president of that very successful company?
That's very cool that you ask. I mean, CardioMiracle was created by my dad because he was in the hospital about to have a quadruple bypass surgery, and they recommended that, he'd need to go under the knife. They had already made a few errors in anticipation of this procedure, and so he was like, wait a minute, I'm out of here. I'm going to go see if there's a way to naturally figure out my cardiovascular issues. And so he found out that there is a miracle molecule called nitric oxide. And when we get that into our blood system, the next thing we know, the blood vessels relax, and it helps people with cardiovascular disease, diabetes, anything that, happens with inside your body in terms of blood flow. And it actually creates vitamin D3 from within the cell. It's a fascinating science. And he discovered that this was something that could help him reverse his heart disease. So he just started taking a ton of that type of product. And when he realized that this reversed his heart disease, he no longer needed quadruple bypass. That's when he created the product that is just a drink mix. And it's 58 natural ingredients. So I'm showing it off to your folks here, but I'll tell you, my dad's even got his picture on the label because he's the face
Yeah.
of it. But my dad is certainly the ultimate zealot of it. His name is John Hewlett, the creator and founder and formulator of it. And CardioMiracle has helped millions of lives, where our mission is really to help save 100 million lives, because so many people suffer from cardiovascular issues, as well as injury from different things that have happened in the last 5 years in our country. And so I think that in terms of that, what happened with me is that I had my own issues where I had hurt my voice as a performer. I had been doing Led Zeppelin and Metallica and Bruce Springsteen and voices that were really hurtful. And
Yeah.
so I could only do one show and then rest for 3 days. Then I could do it again after all the damage. But my dad made me drink this product. And as I drank it, I was like, I don't know, Dad, I think, you're my dad. I mean, you're not a scientist. And next thing I realized, this was actually helping rejuvenate my vocal cords. I was stunned.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then I broke my leg, and after the surgery, I started taking a lot more of the CardioMiracle. And even the surgeons and the PT people were like, what are you taking? This is crazy. You're recovering so much quicker than most people. And it was just because the blood flow coming to that area that was injured made such a difference. And so, Mindy, when my dad and I were talking a couple of years ago, he was like, I have a tiger by the tail. People are buying this CardioMiracle like crazy and love it, and it's changing their lives. And I was coaching other entrepreneurs and businesses, and I came in and looked at CardioMiracle. And as I sat there, I went, I can't believe my dad created this. Like, how did you build this up? And it's done very well, and it's continuing to grow. And so as I came in and started to teach the promise and signature moves and some other things within the business, we started to realize we worked really well together. He's a great salesman, but he's not so much in the managerial side of things in terms of that. And whereas I'm not so much of the salesman, if you will, versus I love to hang out with the management team and talk about what we can do to be better in our work every day. And I like the operation side of things. So we just teamed up. I've been helping him and he's been helping me, and it's a great thing. And what I found interesting too is that he was supposed to die in his 60s because that's when his parents died of their heart disease. So he is now in his mid 70s, which is crazy that he's outlived his heart disease life sentence. And he asked me to come work with him. He was the one that originally introduced me to people in Las Vegas, that opened up all the opportunities
Oh,
for me to
wow.
get legends in concert, to have the opportunities there. So I thought, you know what? I've done this for 25 years. Imagine working with your dad on the thing that he built, just like he helped launch my career.
That's cool.
I mean, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever that we get to go do this. So now we go on stages everywhere together and talk about it. We sing together. God
Yeah,
bless
your dad was
USA.
up there singing with you. It was
Everyone-
awesome.
Everyone's like, your dad's a singer. He would have been a rock star in another life. He's a great singer and musician. And so it's been such a neat marriage between father and son to be able to support one another in our own talents and gifts. And I'm just really proud of my dad, and I'm thankful for anybody that gives CardioMiracle a try. It's really helped a lot of people.
Yeah, we'll link to all those things in the show notes so everybody listening and watching can definitely check it out. So, a question that I like to also ask all of my guests is a four-part framework, and it's based on the acronym HERB, HERB. So, I'll walk you through it step by step, because what this does is it allows us to get a little deeper insight into like how you do the things that you do and how you've created the success that you've created for yourself. So, the H, we'll start with that, is habits. What are some of the daily, weekly, whatever habits that really are the underlying foundation of you being able to do all of this stuff?
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, the habits, I would say, when I did this morning, I woke up, I jumped in my cold plunge, I did my, I wrote in my journal, and I mean, I work out every day without fail.
Nice.
Those types of things make all the difference. I do sauna before bed. I'm actually today I'm doing well for the last, I guess, 24 hours now. I'm in the 40s on intermittent fasting. These have become some of my real good habits that I know have made a big difference for me. And of course, being fully present with my family, that's become a really important habit for me. So when they're around, I don't even have apps on my phone like the distraction ones, social media and so
Oh,
forth.
good.
I literally delete them completely off the phone. So when my family's around me, it's not a distraction because it has been before. And then when I'm ready to post, I have to load them back on. It's an absolute pain. And then I can post and then I delete it again. But those are like many promises that I've made that become my habits that make my life.
You do know that you can post from your computer as well, right? So you don't always have to take them off and
That
reload those
that is
apps. You
that
can
is a
like,
hack for sure. The challenge is this is like I can't, let's say it's a story that my kid posts about me for Father's Day, which has just happened recently. I can't share that story from the computer. Like little missing pieces, and so I'm like, okay, I still have to load this thing today and share that. And then because if you don't share the story your kid posts about you, that then you're breaking a
are you just
commandment.
like failing as a father? Is that what
Yeah,
that means?
apparently. Yeah. So I'm still learning, but yeah, there are absolutely, I could just go on my laptop,
Well,
but
because that's, I mean, I don't have a lot of that stuff on my phone because of that specifically. I
yeah.
don't like, I mean, not because of family, but just because I don't like the distractions of notifications and all that. And I just prefer a bigger screen anyway. So I'm like doing all my stuff on the computer. So just, dropping that little tidbit in there. Let's move on to the E. So the E in herb stands for environment. And I think that your physical space has a lot to do with your productivity, with your potential level of success. How do you set up your environment to win? I mean, other than taking the apps off your phone.
Yeah. I was thinking about that today. My wife is out of town. My kids just left as well. And I thought, I need to clean up my office. Like just having that cleaned up office space helps so much. In fact, all day I've not been in this space where we're recording because I've been sitting on my back porch, which is my sanctuary, if you will.
Nice.
There's, we've got fans out there. It's nice. It's hot where I live, but yet the breeze is blowing. And I'm like, this is the environment I want to create, to write, to think, to respond to an email, to do a phone call. But if I'm on Zoom, obviously I have this space where we are with doing a podcast. So anyway, I would say that creating that environment where it allows you to cultivate creativity and to feel that you're making progress with your, just your ability to move and so forth. In fact, I was on the front porch where I could feel my feet in the grass and that sort of thing. So I do love, I mean, I'm surrounded by mountains. I live in Utah, so I'm in the
Oh,
mountains as much as
beautiful.
possible, right? And do as much as I possibly can to not drive the car. Instead, I'm walking. I walk every day with a weighted vest.
Mm.
It's a 40-pound vest, and I walk 5 miles around this lake. Those are types of
Wow.
environmental habits that I've created that I love.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, 40 pounds sounds like a lot.
It's,
And 5 miles also sounds like a lot. So that's very impressive. So moving on to the R. This one is my absolute favorite. The R is for resources. Resources could be books, programs, film, anything, any type of resource. But I'd love to know maybe a few from you that have really impacted your journey, your mindset, your world. What are some of the resources that you would recommend to others?
okay, I like that a lot.
Me too.
I would say a resource I did last night before we got on this podcast. I listened to yours talking about, you were answering questions about people asking you about Sean.
Mm.
And it was like the ultimate resource to think about how I could be a better person and how I could enjoy life a little bit more. And I think this person was kind of not sure about themselves as a man, is kind of what it was. And
Oh,
it
I know what
was
you're talking. I was at first. I was like, I'm not sure what he's talking, but no, I know exactly what you're talking
it
about.
totally blew me away the way that you responded to it. And I just thought, these are the types of resources I like, where it's like, I'm learning, I'm inspired. You totally blew me away with your answers to this person. And I just thought, okay, how can I even get on a podcast with this amazing woman, right? No, I mean, honestly, like that's how I felt as I was listening to it in my sauna and enjoying my evening. And resources I would say are things where I can learn and get better. In fact, I was watching Netflix the other day. I just noticed I only watch documentaries.
I love
I
documentaries.
can't stop watching documentaries. Now, once in a while, I'll watch stand up, but watching a movie is rare. The movies that move me are the movies of like, there's a movie called About Time. And I would say that a majority of people have no idea what this movie's about, but it's kind of like a father and a son that have the capability of traveling through time. And it just
It's a very
helps
cool
them.
movie.
Have you seen it? Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so it helps them capture more of the being present in that moment. And like I watch that once a year just to be sure I'm still sticking to what I want in my life to be.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
reading the right books, and reading often rather than just scrolling, doom scrolling, those types of things that we can fall into. So
Yeah.
resources for me would be that. And I'd say the main resource is my family, my children, my wife. They're wise, they're funny, they're interesting. They have such an interesting perspective on the world, especially kids and their teens. It is so awesome. So they're my main resources for everything that's joyful, I'd say.
Yeah, that's such, obviously the perfect answer. Do you have maybe just because I'm a total book nerd, fanatic, ridiculous person about books. Do you have a favorite or two that you would like to share?
So many favorites. I don't know where to go. I guess we could go way back into like olden times of the great classics of self-help.
Yeah.
My dad, when I was a kid, gave me How to Win Friends and Influence
When
People.
you were a kid?
When I was 11, he handed me that and he said, since you're not doing well in school, read this, read The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og
Gosh.
Mandino, read The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. He was like, read As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. If you read these
Yes.
books, it will change your life. And I could barely get through a real book. And then all of a sudden I'm reading these classics and it changed my life. So my dad really got me on the path. And I would say some modern classics are Atomic Habits is over the top good. The Big Leap
Yeah.
by Gay Hendricks is unbelievable. And The War of Art by Pressfield is
Oh,
my
one of my
favorite.
favorites.
Yeah.
One of my favorites for sure. For sure. Have you read the 10X book by Dan Sullivan and Ben
Benjamin
Hardy?
Hardy.
Hmm.
Heck yeah. I love that book. What did you think of it?
I loved it. The reason I thought of it was because you were talking about the big leap and like that idea that we are kind of capped out at a certain level of whatever success, money, etc. And then Dan Sullivan's vision of no, let's go 10x, like not just 2x, 3x, whatever, 10x. And that I actually have this right. This I keep on my computer all the time. 10x requires letting go of my current identity, circumstances, and comfort zone.
Yes.
Yes.
That's genius level stuff. And I've never met Dan, but I did a gig with Ben Hardy in years ago, and he was talking, and I thought that guy is on another level, like he's on another planet of thinking. And to then hear what he and Dan have been creating, it's just so special. I love that book. So awesome. I love it. I could
Yeah,
talk to you all day. Well,
definitely. One more part of the herb framework, and that is the B. And I cannot wait to hear what you're going to say about this because I think it will be pretty powerful. The B stands for beliefs. What are some of your core beliefs or just underlying ways that you see the world that have helped you create what you have created?
Well, that's a very cool question too. I mean, I don't know where your audience is coming from, and I
They're all over the
apologize if I
place.
go too far here. But for belief, I would say I believe I'm a child of God. I believe that each of us are, and I believe that we have a place in this earth, and we were sent here to understand and to share and to give that which only we can. And I truly believe that there's a parable of the talents that Jesus taught, which was that one was given five, one was given two, and one was given one. The person with five doubled it, the person with two doubled it, the person with one buried it
Did
and
nothing.
did nothing with it. Now, that's not so far off from what happens with a lot of people. And so my belief is that I'm here to spread joy, but my promise is to help others understand that if they multiply their gifts and their talents, that they share what I believe God sent them here to do, and to identify, clarify, and magnify that in your life will make all the difference. And so my belief comes down to that. I do believe truly that I have a family that I love and that I want to live with eternally, and I believe that we are all children of something much greater than all of us. And I think that it's important that we shine that light as much as possible in all that we do.
Yeah. I don't think you ever need to apologize for that.
Yeah,
You
I
know, I mean, other people may not agree with you, but so what?
right. Yeah, it's interesting to see how many corporate stages I've been on where if I go that direction, I get in like some big trouble, right? And so through the years, I've almost had to be like, hey, just so you know, I'm about to say something that might offend some of you, and that's okay. Here we go. And it's been interesting where if I were a certain religion or a certain demographic, it's okay to say it, but others you just kind of are pushed down a bit. And so I appreciate that anybody can respect what anybody else believes, and I think that's an important part.
Well, that's exactly why I ask everybody on this show that question, because
Cool.
some people are going to come from a very, let's say,
Yeah,
Christian perspective. Some people are the complete opposite and not that at all. And I'm like, great. Like all of these things are working because everybody on this show is a rock star. So
I love that. That's cool. I appreciate it. Cool.
yeah, I mean, it's all good. Um, I have a final question for you. If you could drop into your heart and speak to the listener right now. These are people often who are seeking some big dream. They want to do something great with their lives. Maybe they've started it, maybe they haven't yet. But there's a lot of, as you know, a lot of like uncertainty and indecision and fear that can come up in those situations in life. And I wondered if you could just speak from your heart to that person listening right now and give them some encouragement on their path.
Well, what a pleasure. I would say that I don't know you yet, but I believe that absolutely that you have something incredible to offer the world. And the only way I can know that is if you're willing to open your mouth. And so often we self-mute. And if we are just willing to press play or turn on the record button, and if we're just willing to push ourselves through the people that are going to say this is nothing or this doesn't matter, and when you get some encouragement, I hope that you'll hang on to that, because as it comes through and it shines and it lifts you up, go to the finish line. Get that project finished. Record that album of music. Write that book. Get that business finished. Ask that girl on that date. Don't be afraid. Go for it. Share your light and your gifts, because we need it. We want it. And you're the only one that can share it with this world. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do with that.
Me too. So perfect. So, Jason, this has been absolutely awesome. I feel like I was like stalking you after I saw you on stage at that event. I was like, I need to have this guy on my podcast. Where can the listeners and viewers go if they want to see what you're up to and follow you online?
That would be LinkedIn. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all those other places. But really, if you're interested in following more of what I've got, jasonhewlett.com is the right place. And then, of course, CardioMiracle.com is our health company. And so, yeah, there's a couple of different places, but LinkedIn is where I play, I'd say, the most for professionals and entrepreneurs. So let's connect. I would love to hear from you and hear what you thought about this. And if there's any way I can help as well. Like, I love knowing about the entrepreneur that's on their way and how I can be a resource in terms of just, part of that herb, if you will, to say, can I help you get to the next level? And maybe that's just connecting the right dots for you. And yeah, that's an exciting thing for me. So thank you, Mindie, for having me today.
It's been an absolute delight and pleasure. For everybody watching and listening, I will link to all of that stuff in the show notes. You can check that out at lucra.com. Jason, thank you once again. This has been absolutely awesome.
Thank you, Mindie.